Hey, man.
Oh, hey, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you?
I'm great. I've been suffering greatly without our lessons. I dropped 400 rating points. I basically dropped to your level.
400 rating points. What happened? Do you find like hard drugs and fall asleep playing the game or
I
something?
did, yeah. Every game, I couldn't stay awake after move two, and so I
Oh,
forfeited
man.
on time, game after game after game. Okay, so he's played a London system, which is a rare guest at this
Yeah, I've
level.
never seen this one.
And normally, when there's a rare guest like this, you just want to develop normally. In fact, most openings you want to develop normally.
Mm,
Now, your favorite move would be a good one. If you look, the point of his move is to stop your bishop, your light squared bishop, from coming out to f5.
right. Which
But
is why
he,
I'd want to just play the e4.
you mean to g4 or to the knight to e4?
The knight to e4 is what I was looking at.
I think you don't even need to do that because he might kick that knight away with his pawn. Now you could develop the
Mm,
c8 bishop. He's not deprived you of every square. If you
yeah,
think
no, I
about
still
it.
have g4 on the queen, right?
And he might blunder his queen. You never know. Right. He's probably going to develop his knight out. That's what usually London players usually do. And I don't. Okay, wow, he moved his queen out. That's pretty good news because that queen's going to be pretty awkward. So what comes to mind?
Well, I immediately just looked at playing the e4 now,
Hmm.
but then he can just fork with the pawn. That
No, but
doesn't work super
you're
well, right?
attacking his queen. But you're attacking his queen. So it's actually a very interesting move.
But after, okay, I'll just play it and see what happens anyway.
Yeah,
Might as
it's a
well.
little bit dubious, but I'm trying to get you to play on the edge a little bit. You got to live on the edge a little bit in chess. So if he reacts correctly, this could be suspicious. But okay, he's moved his queen back. Now he is threatening the fork, but you can prevent the fork. I mean, you can move one of the two pieces. Which piece do you think you can move?
I was gonna just go knight take on f2. Oh
Ooh,
wait,
and
it's not. It's yeah. I was gonna
it's
have
a
a
pretty
follow up, but
bold move.
I had an idea for a follow up for when king takes on f2, but it's not going to work, so I'm not gonna bother. Uh, I'll
So
just drop the. I was
drop
just
the
gonna
what?
drop the bishop back.
Yep, perfect. Drop the bishop back to h5. And notice that if he kicks your knight away, it looks like you've wasted time, but in playing f3, he's put a pawn on the square where he normally wants to develop his knight. So this is sort of a provocation. You're investing a little bit of time to, ruin his position in a small way. And when you do a lot of that, eventually he accumulates a lot of weaknesses that you can then attack, if that makes sense.
Makes sense to me.
So he's definitely deciding right now, right this second, wherever he is, whether to play f3 and chase your knight away. He doesn't know who he's dealing with, obviously.
Yeah.
I wonder how
So
people come
how's
up with.
life been for you? It's been a little while. Anything new?
It's been busy. I've been working on several non-streaming projects. I was working on a bunch of chess YouTube videos. I started working on a new book. I actually was doing a lot of my own training. Um, Believe it or not, there's a lot of holes in my
Wow.
own game that I was trying to patch up because I'm anticipating that tournaments are going to resume in a couple of months. Well, I'm
Mhm.
anticipating who the fuck knows when anything is going to resume. Okay, so he's attacked d5 here. You want to reinforce that pawn.
Yeah, so it was just going to be normal development at
Yeah,
e6.
absolutely. And I was fixing some of the problems in my own opening play, of which there are actually many, believe it or not.
Do you play like one? Are you known for like one particular open?
Somewhat. So you can continue developing normally here. I'm known for
Okay.
my aversion to opening theory. Like I like taking the game out of the beaten path and going batshit crazy as early as possible. Now you can
Really?
probably see. Well, my
I like
style
that.
is tremendously aggressive, but you can see how that could be a problem against people who are very well prepared.
Right.
So, sometimes if I'm on, I can beat anybody, but I can also lose to anybody. And that's when you're a GM trying to succeed, that can be a problem.
Yeah. I could see that. I still think it's a cool way of playing the game, though.
Yeah, I'm easily bored. I mean, that's what it stems from. So, okay, so you can continue developing normally. He's making a couple of moves that might be mysterious to you, but they're typical London moves.
So I was just looking at taking that bishop anyway with the knight, because then he stacks his pawns. Is that even worth it?
Well, once he's... Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. What you're going to see... So you can do that. Ooh, thank you, Bobster, for the fat 10 gift subs, as one likes to say.
So for the
old expression was. Yeah, so that's why it's double-sided coin. But you can drop the bishop back, or you can defend the bishop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, what's better? Is this position for the bishop even very good? Should I bother?
You should drop it back.
H5.
And let me explain something interesting. Bring it back to G6. Now he's going to take your bishop. I don't know why, but I have a feeling he will. And then notice which pawn you can't take with. You'll have to take with one particular pawn.
Yeah, it's got to be F7.
Now, you stack your own pawns. Oh, wow. My skills of prophetism have abandoned me. Okay, well, that's good for you. Now you can just continue developing.
Yeah, no, I just want a castle.
Indeed. But yeah, the trend in top-level chess has been to play more and more solidly. I've kind of bucked that trend. And I like to play like they did in the 18th century. Just balls to the wall, or nuts to the butts, you know?
Yeah. I think that's the right way of approaching things.
You live like you play chess. Oh, okay, I don't exactly live like that, but...
I would hope not, yeah.
Some chess players have. Like the stories I tell. The insanity of chess players is unlike the insanity of anyone. Okay, so G4... He's making aggressive motions, but he's not actually doing anything. Now, here's the thing. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, before I forgot, the move I immediately looked at with that was going to E4, so then he can't push that G2 pawn at any point or he loses rook.
And it just
takes the middle back.
I like it a lot. And I think you unwittingly did something interesting. That's another provocation move, because he could push his F pawn out and chase your bishop.
Mm-hmm.
But, again... By pushing his f-pawn out, he's blocking the development of his own knight. And if he develops his knight to f3, well, then you have a bishop established on an outpost. You see what I'm saying? So it's actually a very, very good positional move. And notice that he's not developed. He hasn't developed either of his knights. And what does that mean in the context of what you want to do? When the center is closed and he's not developing, what do you want to do to the center?
I want to put as much pressure there as possible.
You want to open it up. Yeah, you want to put pressure on the center. You want to open it up so that your pieces have avenues toward his king. That's the way to punish people who don't, other than good old flogging. That's a good way to punish people who haven't developed. Now he's played F3. So
what that opened up for me that I looked at as a check on G3 with my bishop. Is that even
shit. That's awesome. Fuck, I didn't think you would see that move. I'm going to be completely honest with you. That forces his king to move. Yeah. And that's an intermezzo. That's an intermediate move, and it's a good one. Now his king has no castling rights anymore. Damn. Sometimes you surprise me, I have to confess. Okay, you have an absolutely sick move in this position. It is freaking epic. So look at his king. Look at his king and his queen. What kind of position are they in? They're vulnerable to one particular thing. Two particular things. What are they?
They're on the same diagonal here.
Vulnerable to a bishop pin, and they're located on two adjacent squares, which means they can be picked off by what other piece?
The knight?
Potentially, yes. So they're forkable on the b3 square. You can combine both of these with a sick tactic, forcing him to either get into a knight fork or open up a diagonal and get into a bishop fork.
Let me see. Is what you're looking at taking on d4
Bingo.
With the pin?
Yes. Okay. Now that's is why you play like a madman. Moments like these.
So now I just take right here on d4. If
immediately.
He takes a pawn, I win the queen, yeah.
And if he takes your bishop, you win the queen also.
Yeah.
That is pretty sick. Now, he doesn't have to do either. In fact, he shouldn't. But actually finding a way to get out of the little tizzy he's found himself in is pretty difficult. Notice that you're also opening up the center and doing so. Okay, so he's succumbed to the second of the traps.
Yeah.
Bingo.
That is a cool strategy, yeah. That was beautiful. I noticed the diagonal right away, but I guess I didn't think of a plan to get the pawn off. I like that. That's beautiful.
And it's also the forkable squares, right? Like the king and the queen. Yeah. That's how I actually, thanks, Bobster, for the sub. That's actually how I found this move. is I noticed the king and the queen are on d2 and c1. That's a very common forkable square. A lot of games have been won with a knight fork on b3. So, okay, now he's attending the funeral of his lady.
Oh yeah, he is punching
he's
air
grieving.
right now.
He's grieving. He's grieving. The loss of your queen is it's like, I don't know. It's among the most painful experiences one can have.
Oh, it's gotta
chess
be.
player can
Oh.
have.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Bobster. Appreciate it. Yeah, no, he's got several. He's got to play king d1 because at least he gets a bishop then for your queen. If he moves the king out to c3, well, that's even worse. Thanks all of you for the subs. I really appreciate it. Yugamaldi, Bobster, Quizzical Monk. No, man, he's crying. I think we need to send a truck full of Kleenex to him.
Yeah, I mean, he's just, it looks like he DC'd.
Well, yeah, after he cries, maybe we should let him release the tension a little bit.
I'm pretty sure this man just unplugged the router.
I think he just did. Man, don't talk about my router's right under my feet. The amount of times, oh my goodness, he did unplug his fucking router.
Yeah. No, I told you that guy was very upset.
I think Xfinity just experienced a nationwide internet outage. Whatever they have over in those boonies in Florida. Spectrum. Yeah.
We don't use that word around here. That's like Voldemort's name. That shit sucks.
Spectrum sucks. Well, I actually have it, so I'm never talking to you again. I don't like it. I have random internet outages.
Okay, cool.
Thanks for the
I thought you were gonna say like you're sponsored by Spectrum or something. I was gonna feel bad.
No, not at all. No, I mean, I would never sacrifice myself like it. So let me, okay. Am I following you? Yes, okay. So you're playing a new game against, yes, of course, Tim. Oh shit, I think you should resign already. You're fucked. Okay,
Tim seems pretty impressive, man. He's got a fucking pool noodle in there.
He does. I noticed that too. Okay, so he's playing the Sicilian defense. And again, you can develop normally, but you can also play what's called the open Sicilian. You can push your D pawn out to D4. And I think you've seen this before.
That's exactly what I was about to do.
Right. And the point of that is that it opens up the development for your bishop, and you're exploiting the fact that remember, he's not developing his pieces. He's pushing his pawns out, so therefore you're opening up the center.
Right.
Right.
No, he takes, I take with knight, right? I don't take with queen.
Yeah, taking with the queen would be the checkover variation. Checkover was not a bad player, but it is a pretty adventurous line. Everything has a name in chess. Even the shittiest lines have a name. Okay, he's played the Najdorf. This is the most popular Sicilian. Now, take a look at both of your bishops. Okay? Do you see good development squares for both of them? And you can start with either.
Well, he takes off the free little cheeky check, which doesn't really do much anyway. So what I was looking at is just the standard c4 for my F bishop.
Yep, perfect. That is the Bobby Fischer variation. Now, I'll show you after this game. I'll blow your mind a little bit. I'll show you the amount of moves that White has tried in that position. It's actually pretty friggin' interesting.
From right here, the Bobby Fischer.
Before bishop c4. So he's played e5, which is a really bad positional move because there is a certain square that he's really weakened. Now, first you got to move your knight. And as you're moving it, maybe you can tell me what square that is. Wow, thanks GM Bobby Fischer for the bits, man. I didn't even know his ghost is in the chat. Okay, so which square does the knight want to go to? And don't overthink this. I mean, really any square is fine.
I mean, I could just drop it back to its normal home at f3.
Absolutely, as you should. Now, which square has he weakened by playing e5?
Oh, he can no longer put a pawn there on the outpost at d5.
Right, so immediately a plan has crystallized. Now, you don't want to put the knight on d5 immediately because he's got a knight on f6 guarding that square. But we actually did a training problem like this. What's your plan to get a knight to d5? How would you eliminate its defender?
I just immediately go for an attack at g5 with my bishop.
Nice. Nice. And this is a very typical plan, actually, in the Sicilian defense. I could show you like 30 Sicilian games. I could show you some of my games where this happened. Okay, continue.
And I just take the knight, which frees up the outpost.
Bingo. Now, there's a phrase in chess, the threat is stronger than the execution. So you didn't have to put your knight on d5, but here specifically, there's no reason not to. But sometimes there would be
Okay.
situations where you'd want to hold out. But we'll talk about it. Talk about that afterwards. So the opening has been a success. You're better. Over in faraway Australia, Tim is. Yeah, I don't know how that green noodle is treating him right about now. I wonder how long people take to like load up photos on their chess.com accounts. Like I still
So
have
how
a
long did it
photo.
take you?
I have a photo from 2007 that is my profile, but it's not very intimidating. But I am holding a trophy up.
Oh yeah, no, I think it's intimidating.
I mean, I'm always intimidating. Okay, so just could keep developing.
Yeah, just a normal castle here.
Yep. Just a normal castle. And this is going to be a very instructive position because it's going to allow you to find a plan. Okay, so he wants to take your knight, but that knight will then be replaced by a bishop, which will be just as good on that outpost. So
Yeah, so I don't need to worry about that.
you don't
right
need to
there.
worry about that. What you want to do is create a plan. And does anything come to mind in terms of what you want to start working on in this position?
Well, the first thing that I wanted to do was if I get my bishop there on d5, I wanted to have my knight there on g5 as well, so I could come in with bishop, take on f7, and win a rook. But I think that's a little too deep and really reliant on things going like the way I have it in my head.
Precisely,
So probably-
because...
Yeah, so it's probably not a good plan. Other than that, I was just going to get this knight off so I could look to maybe do a rook lift.
Yeah, I like that. And you could open up that F file potentially. So
Yeah.
where would you put that knight on F3 where it's at least doing something?
I can't put it anywhere on the G or H because bishop's guarding both those and I can't take back, so I just have to bring it over here to D2.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's totally fine. And you want to open up that F5 with F4. Now, there's one thing you want to do before you play F4. Notice that after F4, E takes F4, his bishop on F6 is going to be attacking your B2 pawn. So before you play F4, what you want to do is blunt his bishop. Like you want to reduce its influence, and then you'll be ready to play F4 without sacrificing anything.
Yeah, so I just want to push up the C pawn.
Exactly. And notice that you're also covering, in doing so, the D4 square. So he can't put his own knight on an outpost.
Okay, that makes sense.
Then you're ready to play F4. Now, after the game, I'll show you a couple of alternative plans in that position, which you haven't yet really learned. So, for all intents and purposes, pushing the F pawn is a good plan. Okay, he plays B5, he chases your bishop away, no problem.
Yeah, so I just bring it back. It doesn't change the plan.
Exactly. Now, if he was really professional, he'd play knight A5 here and try to take your bishop, but I don't know if that's within Tim 341's capabilities. Yeah, so you want to play F4, you want to open up that file. Not only do you want to lift your rook up, but eventually you can foresee a future, right, where you're attacking that pawn on F7.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
So, yeah. So we'll see what he's doing here. Okay, knight A5. He
Ooh.
did play it. Let me look at my stream viewership here. Okay, so that doesn't technically stop you from doing what you want to do.
Yeah, it just comes at a higher cost now because I'll lose bishop with the play.
Which is okay, you know. Can't always
Yeah.
have your cake and eat it too. Well, I think you
Okay,
can.
so I'm just going to push up the F pawn.
Exactly. Yeah, in the style of Bobby Fischer, he would definitely approve. Yeah, let's see if he takes your bishop. I mean, what he's doing are very typical moves that you play in the Sicilian, but I'm impressed that he knows them. Okay, so what do you want to take with to keep that outpost alive on D5?
I have to take with, well, taking with the queen is the way that I keep that alive, isn't it?
But then you pin yourself. If you take with the knight, notice that your queen then defends the knight on D5. You open up the defense of the queen.
Ah, I see. Okay, so I do want to take with the knight.
Yeah, that's actually part of the reason it's good to put the knight on D2 is now it's on B3. It's guarding some of the queenside squares. And it is, well, it's just doing a good job overall. He's got two bishops for two knights, but that's not always a good thing. I actually like having 2 knights for the 2 bishops. Okay, good.
Yeah. I take with the pawn. Hold that, right?
Ooh, but don't you want to outpost for your piece? If you take with a pawn, it's like you fill up the cavity. You want to keep the cavity open.
So I take with the queen here, even though it's kind of out in the open? Okay.
Sorry for the dental reference, but yeah, you want to take... It's fine that it's out in the open because he's traded most of his pieces, okay? Your queen has plenty of retreat squares in case it'll be attacked. And so I want to just... Okay, he's giving you a check, you know. You shouldn't be afraid of checks and threats just because they kind of exist. You can always defend against the threat.
Yeah,
okay,
the only defense here is just moving the king back, right?
Yep, exactly. And your queen's actually very strong on d5. Queen's actually very strong here. My guess is he's going to probably take your pawn on f4, but maybe he'll want to keep the f file close. I don't know. Yeah, he's definitely playing well, but you're still better. Let's see what he does. Yeah, it's rare in general that somebody at his level plays the Najdorf Sicilian. It's the kind of opening you normally learn when you cross like 1700. That's at least what was the case with me. Okay. Now he's given you the chance to do something really cool. You see that if he takes on f4, he opens up a file for his rook on e8, right?
Yeah.
Can you prevent all of that from happening? Could you just freeze the king side?
I just push up my pawn.
Yeah, and you still have the capacity for a rook lift, so you've gained that ability, but you also freeze his rook and his bishop. Look at how they're just staring at that e5 pawn now, doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So now it's actually a very challenging position to play, but your long-term plan can actually be a pawn storm on the king side in addition to a rook lift. So when I say pawn storm, what do I mean?
Is that a question?
That is a question.
Okay, sorry, I thought you were going to go into like an explanation. So I'm assuming the next move in the pawn storm would be pushing up to the g4.
Yeah,
to look
it
to
is.
reinforce. Okay.
It is. And eventually you want to prepare the move g5, which will chase his bishop away, and then perhaps g6. That'll be like a checkmating move. Now,
right.
You're ready to play g4. You're not ready to play g5 yet, but that's okay because you're going to prepare that move. That's where planning comes in.
Do I need to worry about this pawn push on a4, or is that something I just wait on? Do I want to preemptively get the knight out, or do I want to just wait?
Well, I would just wait. I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Okay.
Because your plan is stronger than his. And even if he plays a4, then you get your knight out to d2.
Okay, so then just playing g4 now is the right order.
Indeed. So what you're learning right now is not being afraid of like threats. And I totally understand the instinct to prevent a threat is a good one. But you want to evaluate whether something is actually dangerous. Now, here's the mind-blowing thing. You wanted to put your knight on d2 anyway. Because where is the knight going ultimately? And what is it going to do on that final square?
We're looking at we're
he's
looking at
helping
f3,
you.
right?
He's helping you get where you want to go.
He's making it even easier.
Exactly, because then you're going to be ready to play g5. So this maneuver was something you were going to embark on anyway.
He's got only one actual one spot for that bishop right now, right? Bringing it to like e7.
Yeah, well, he could put it on
Otherwise, it's going to pin himself.
f4 would be a pretty good square. Wow, he knows what he's doing, but now he's allowed you to accomplish your plan.
Yeah, I just play g5 anyway, right?
And you're ready for real action now. Yeah, the bishop on f4 is actually on an outpost because it's protected by the pawn and it's hard to dislodge. It's like a splinter and you're behind, but it's okay. You know, we can live with a splinter. So is the queen on d5. Now, do you see why you're threatening g6 here?
Well, I think, yeah, because you can only take with one pawn, which is his h-pawn, which is going to open up that for a rook lift, right? And then I can look for, like, a mating maneuver, perhaps, because he's...
Well, he's trying to stop you from doing that. And... which is a good move. But what I would do here is just generally improve your position. You don't always have to, like, do something specific. You have one piece that's sleeping right now. Can you bring it into the game?
You're talking about my A rook here, A1?
Yes. Where would you put it? I mean, just any good square. There's a couple of good squares. There's one open file you can put the rook on.
Yeah, so D1
Yes.
is doesn't seem terrible. Is that really the best spot for it, though?
It is. Now, your pieces aren't always going to be conquering Rome and joining Alexander the Great on campaigns. Sometimes they're just occupying an open file and supporting the queen. That's fucking acceptable, too. Now, the queen on D5 is sort of the conqueror here, but the rook is just sitting on a file where it's controlling squares. So, does that sort of make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, you're basically tossing the ball back into his court. People don't like deciding what to do. They want to be told what to do. So he's going to have a hard time here making a decision about how to continue because he's gone queen e3. Now, you see that rook on d1. You can employ it to chase that queen away.
Yeah, am I just bringing the rook to e1 now? Get the queen out?
Exactly.
Okay.
You get the queen out. And you've done a little bit of misdirection insofar as you put it on d1. He's brought his queen to an annoying square. You're like, get the hell out of there. Now, once he drops his queen back, assuming it's not on c5, which would be the best move. I'm not anticipating he will play that move, though. No. Now you can continue the pawn storm. You have one pawn that you haven't mobilized yet.
Yeah, so I want to push up to h4.
Yep, get it going. And then you actually are preparing a sacrifice. A breakthrough sacrifice. You see that pawn on g6. You want to get it out of there so that you can play g6.
Right.
And you see how you can employ that newly mobilized pawn to do that?
Yeah, I'm just going to throw it up at h5 and he can just take.
And that's a pretty minor sacrifice because he's going to end up with bad pawns anyway. And, oh, wow, that is a weird move.
Yeah, so that's just a free bishop.
Yes. What do you want to take? Yep, the knight. Nice, because you keep the queen in an outpost. Notice that you've opened up the F file as a consequence. So what are you actually threatening here?
Now I can just go right up there to f7. I can just take pawn, open that up, and go up to f7 immediately, right?
Yes, precisely. You're threatening to take the pawn. Wow. Okay, so by that token, what do you want to take here to keep the file open?
I want to take with the rook.
Yeah. And then you have a typical idea, once he defends the pawn, to reinforce your attack on it. So he'll probably play rook e7 or rook f8. And then actually notice your pawns on g5 and h5. Well, okay, what comes to mind?
I was just looking at stacking the rooks.
Do it.
Okay.
Absolutely. He's probably going to play rook d7 here, and now you need a new way to attack that pawn. You can use your pawns to prepare an idea you're familiar with.
Yeah, is it pushing h5 and
yes.
then g6? Okay.
Precisely. Precisely. You're ready to play g6 and tear him apart. Completely tear him apart. Watch your clock a little bit. Once you get below a minute, you'll have to speed up. But what we're doing here, okay. Now here's the thing. He thinks he's defended against the threat, but he hasn't. You just want to tear the position open, which means g6 is still perfectly fine. You see what I'm saying? You're just opening up files for your rooks. I would pre-move hg. Okay.
Okay. So now I just take with the pawn here.
Yeah. And he can't take with a pawn. If he takes with a king, well, then he opens up that g file for your rook. What he should do is play f6. Or he can give you a check on h8, which is not scary at all. That's what I think he's going to do. He's probably going to give you a check.
And in that case, do I just want to pre-move going to g2? Because I'm pretty sure that's how I'm stopping that, right?
Well, you don't want to pre-move it because I'm not positive that he's going to do that.
Well, no, I just meant, like, if he does that, I just want to immediately go here, right?
Yeah, and he did. So now, in playing his rook to h8, he has weakened his control. He's probably going to take the pawn on g6 with his pawn. It would be my guess. He's weakened his control over a square into which you can then infiltrate. Do you see that square?
Is it f7?
It is, because it's defended 3 times and sorry, it's attacked 3 times and defended only twice. So that will signal the beginning of the end. That will signal the beginning of the end. Yeah, I mean, there's really nothing else he can do because okay. Well, yeah, he does.
So now I come in here with the rook. He has to take with the rook. I take back with the rook, right?
Well, you take back actually not with a rook, but there's a much better piece to take back with.
Oh, with the queen. Yeah,
with the
I take
queen.
with the queen here.
Now he's gonna go king h6, and here's the thing: what is the king's only retreat square that's not along the h5? Why is rook h1 not mate?
I actually don't. Oh, because he can just go to g5.
Can you employ one
So I
of your
wanna cut
other
that off,
pieces
right?
to cover it up? How?
Yeah, so knight f3.
Bingo. And essentially, checkmate is inevitable. He can try to slither out of it, but if you play accurately, it'll be mate. Okay, well, he didn't try to slither out of it.
Yeah, so now it's just checkmate now at h1, yeah?
Yep.
Perfect.
Fantastic. Okay, so let me invite you to an analysis board. There's a lot to unpack there from this game. There were a couple of really interesting moments. He played very well, too, so good job. Okay. Let me hope that this works. All right, just invited you.
Nice. That worked immediately.
Wow, I mean, society is improving. What can I say? So, in this position, this is the start of the Najdorf Sicilian. I can give you a sense here of how many moves have actually been tried in this position. So, give me a second. I'm actually loading this on my other program where it tells me how many recorded games there were in a particular position. Okay. It's searching right now. There we go. So there were a total of... Wow, there's so many games it doesn't even display it. Over 200,000 in this position. So
wow.
Bishop G5 is the most popular move with 74,000 games. Then let me just list the amount of moves that have more than 100 games played with them. Here we go. Bishop G5, Bishop E3, Bishop E2, Bishop C4, F3, F4, H3, G3, A4, Bishop D3, Rook G1, Queen F3, Knight B3, A3, H4, Queen E2, Knight F3, Queen D3. So,
yep, I followed a couple of those.
Yep, and the funny thing is, a couple of years ago, I was playing a tournament, pretty big tournament, the US Championship, and I wanted to find something new in this position. So just from the amount of moves that I read out, you can probably guess how hard that is.
Right.
But I did manage to find a move that, by that time, in that time, this was like 2 years ago, was extremely rare. And it's become a lot more popular since then, which is the move H4. And basically the idea is to preemptively start off a pawn storm on the king side, because I'm so sure that he's going to castle short at some point. I'm already kind of beginning that pawn storm, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, I get you.
But mostly I was doing that for the creativity points. That's just to give you a flavor of how crazy I am.
Oh, yeah, a real wacko. That's nice, though.
H4, I know. Immediately send me off to the mental institution when they found out I played that move.
Yeah, going right to Arkham Asylum with that kind of shit.
The psychiatrists were lined up at the door when they... Yeah. So, anyways, Bishop C4 is one of the classical moves. Bobby Fischer basically pioneered it. Now, what would be Black's best move here? You know that this bishop is controlling this diagonal. Can Black basically blunt the bishop's control over that diagonal?
Yeah, just going e6.
Just going e6 would be absolutely correct. So he's played e5. You dropped your knight back. Bishop g5. Bishop takes f6. And knight d5. Now this plan should make perfect sense to you. We've seen it several times before. And rook e8 castles. Bishop e6 is great. Now you came up with the idea of opening up that f file, potentially lifting a rook up. I actually, while I was in the bathroom, I remembered a story I wanted to share with you, and I forgot to share it, and it relates to the Najdorf. So do you still see the analysis board? This is, now, when I say Najdorf, that's not some mythical, Sumerian word. It's actually after, most openings are named after someone. Najdorf was a grandmaster, Miguel Najdorf, from Poland. So he was a strong player in his own right, and he just developed this line. In fact, the first person to ever play the Najdorf, and usually it's not the person it's named after. It was a guy named Piotr Halava in 1899.
Wow,
and Najdorf,
cool name.
Najdorf was only like the 30th to play the Najdorf. It's just that he put the most effort into it. And then the second person, believe it or not, somebody played this in 1899. And then the next time somebody played it was 1926. It took 27 years before somebody actually played this line again. Anyways, so a couple of years ago I taught a camp to some very high-rated kids. I don't remember if I shared this before. So they were, 2,000, 2,100, really good players, right? and I was talking about the Night Orf, and I was explaining some of its intricacies. And I managed to convince a room full of 2100 rated kids, because I'm really good at pranking them, and because I usually have a serious face, even though I'm just fucking trolling all the time. I convinced them that the move Bishop F4 had been a recent theoretical novelty.
Oh yeah, you told me this.
I told you that. I did tell you. I had a feeling I told you that. All of the good stories that I have, I've already shared. Yeah. So those of you who are new, I basically managed to do that, despite the fact that Black can win a piece. And believe it or not, Bishop F4 has been actually played 34 times.
Out of 200,000, that's not super good.
Yeah, but amazingly, like a 2,000 played it. I see an 1,800 played it. So I don't know what went through these people's minds when they
probably took your class.
Yeah, they probably. Those are all of the kids in my class. I can see the names. Yes, people like Alvarez Moreno and Gelbenegger and Tufengjian. Man, I'm telling you, like, the names of chess players, you cannot make that shit up. It's like only chess players have those names. Okay, anyways, back to business. So, alright. So, Bishop E6, and this was the position where you prepared the movement of your F-pawn.
Yep.
Now, what catches my eye here? When I'm looking at this is this D6 pawn, you notice that it's weak.
Right.
Now, the problem is that you have a knight on D5 that's blocking the queen's access to that pawn. So here's what I'm thinking. What I'm going to do is I'm going to preemptively pile up on this pawn, step 1. And then step 2, when I'm ready, I'm going to move this knight away from D5, and I'm going to expose the attack on the D pawn. Okay? Could you propose a way to pile up? When I say pile up on the D pawn, what the hell do I mean?
Well, put more attackers on the D pawn.
So how would you do that?
Without moving the knight, right? We need to keep the knight on that outpost.
We need to keep the knight on the outpost to patch things up before we're ready to expose it.
So what I look at is the most obvious one, which is just bringing a pawn up to it. So you drop the bishop back and push up that pawn, but then that just hangs a pawn, and then that's not really that great.
Right. Don't confuse attacking a weakness with eliminating it, right? Because you technically attack it if you put a pawn on c5, but you will also allow black to get rid of it. So you actually do need to use your pieces.
Okay.
And I'm not expecting this to be easy, because this is the first time that I've shown you this type of plan.
So is it queen d2, and then put a rook on d1, then bring queen to b4, and now you've introduced 2 new attackers, and you're still attacking other pieces, like you're now attacking b7 with queen?
Yes, that's a great plan. So queen d2 would be the start. Let's say black plays something random. Now, first of all, you would put a rook here, and then you would put a queen on b4. That's exactly what I was thinking. That's plan number 1. I'll show you a second idea. Now, let me tell you one other thing, which is that you don't even always need to put a queen on b4. So let's say black develops his knight. You drop your bishop back to a protected square, and black plays a random move. What are you now ready to do?
We're ready to move the knight and attack that pawn, right?
And where would we move it? Where would we move it so that it's as forcing as possible? Remember, chess is a game of tit for tat. Like, you want to give up some advantages and get certain others. So you don't want to get emotionally attached to any of your pieces. I know you tend to do that a lot. You cry over your knights and bishops, but you got to get rid of them sometimes, right? Sometimes you got to fucking part ways with them.
So we need to force it, right? So what I'm looking at is bringing knight to b4. Is that the right play for it?
That's a good move. That is a good move, but it's not forcing enough, because I moved my bishop back, and guess what? The pawn is now protected. I think that your brain is Xing out this move, because even though you don't think you like this knight, you like it more than you think you do. But you can take a piece here.
Is it just taking the bishop then to eliminate that? Okay.
But the point is not that you don't want to take the bishop. It's just you have to in order to force black's hand, and now you're ready to win a pawn.
Okay.
And now you might be like, all of this bullshit to win a single goddamn pawn. Do you have anything better for me? Well, that's just the nature of Grandmaster level chess. Like, you do all of the stuff, you win a pawn, and a pawn is something to celebrate. You know what I'm saying? Like, at the high level, a pawn is a pretty big deal.
Right. Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Which brings me to the second plan. And I'll show you why I know this. Everything I know, most things I come from games that I lost. And I was able to learn from really good players what to do in these types of positions. Chances are for every position that you've had, I had a pretty similar type of position. And in fact, I'll show you that this is the case with this position too. Here's what white could do. You notice that this knight on d5 is exerting overall pressure on black's position.
Yeah.
Now, what you could do is you could basically say, I'm not going to play on the king side. I'm going to play on the queen side. I'm going to attack this b7 pawn, and I'm just going to start pressuring his queen side. Now, in order to attack a pawn, you first need to immobilize it. This pawn on b7, as Tim 341 showed you, can go out to b5. Can you stop that pawn from going to b5?
Yeah, I just play a4.
Bingo. That's a great first move. Now, can you devise a way, using one of the pieces that's not currently doing anything, to apply pressure on the b7 pawn?
Do I rook lift up a3 then b3?
Absolutely, and I was hoping you would say that. You see that not all rook lifts are tactical. Some rook lifts are positional. I actually wrote an article called The Positional Rook Lift a couple years ago, precisely on these types of rook lifts. I love them. Okay, I don't love them like I love, I don't know, hamburgers and cookout, but, and Wendy's.
You have an affinity for them, I get you.
I have an affinity. I have a mild affinity for them, okay? It's not a... Yeah, I want to be very clear about what it is here. What it is, what it isn't.
I'm not going to kink shame you. I mean, it's fine, man. Yeah,
right, exactly. Thank you. You got my hint. Excellent. So rook a3, rook b3, and this causes more discomfort to black than it might seem, okay? Because we're going to make a couple empty moves for black. Once you play rook b3, not only do you attack this pawn, first of all, it's pretty fucking hard to defend. Because if black tries to defend it with his queen, what move do you now have?
Well, I mean, if you take bishop, it's a check. You force the pawn to take.
That's true, but you have something a lot juicier here. This is something you used to miss a lot.
Oh, Jesus, I see it. Yeah, it's a different fork. It's over on b6.
It is, and you want to be very precise here. Let's say he brings his queen out to c6. You don't want to take the rook immediately because you lose your bishop. So what do you want to do first?
I would need to reinforce the bishop.
So you would want to somehow do that with tempo, right? You don't want to move your queen out and defend it because he's going to have time to move his rook out. So you're right that you want to reinforce it, but you have a way of reinforcing it such that you're also attacking an opponent's piece.
Okay. Is it...
It's a really strong move.
Is it just bringing the bishop to b5?
You're close. Then his pawn can take the bishop.
But then you... Oh, I see.
Yeah,
okay.
but you get an exchange, and you could win an entire rook here. You're right. Your idea is exactly right. It's just not b5. There's a different square.
d5 then,
yep.
Right?
Bingo. That's a very strong move. Takes. You're attacking his queen. You're attacking his rook. Now, the simpler thing to do would have been just to take his bishop. And I noticed that sometimes you have an aversion to just taking pieces or trading. I think you still have that a little bit, and sometimes it holds you back just a little bit. There's nothing wrong with trading inherently, especially because here black has to choose between giving up his rook or not recapturing the bishop, both of which are equally disastrous.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
So both moves would be fine. And so that would be the other plan in this position that you could exploit. So the last thing is I'll show you how I know this. Again, I know it's a big problem to copy games into the analysis board, so let's see if you can actually see this once I copy it in. Let's say your freaking prayers.
I'm expecting big things.
Crash your computer again. Okay, I just pasted it in.
Don't even say that.
Yeah, no, but I don't. Do you see? Let me look at your stream. I'm looking at
position did change.
It did, but again, it's that ghostly problem where you're literally I'm moving pieces and it's moving in a different board for you. So let me copy the game into a different analysis board. And if that doesn't work, we'll just skip that part. I was just going to show you a very similar game that I played, which taught me a lot about how to play these types of positions. I wanted to show you how the progression works of improvement. Okay, so let me try this. PGN. I wonder why this doesn't work. I'm actually going to write a note right now. I've been procrastinating with that. Okay, I'm re-inviting you, so you can close that other board.
Okay.
Okay, now let's see what you see. I swear to God, I'm going to break something if I see the wrong game playing. Oh my God, again.
This is a different game?
This was a game I played yesterday against, actually, world number 4. Very strong player. I played a match with him yesterday.
Nice.
But that's not the fucking game I wanted to show you. Okay, so fine. Last attempt, I'm going to copy a position. That's definitely going to close the board again. I'm really sorry to make you do this.
It's all good, man.
And what I'm going to do is actually just copy a position, and this should actually work. Okay, load FEN. Yeah, who would have thought? I'm actually copying in a game doesn't work. Okay, just invited you. And by the way, speaking of interesting names, perfect. You see the position. The guy I played yesterday, world number 4, his name is Jan Nepomniachtchi, which is not only unpronounceable, it means in Russian, one who doesn't remember. Now, he has actually a fantastic memory, which is the funny part.
That's a cool fucking name, though.
It is. Lechesisq is his chess.com name, but his real name is Jan Nepomniachtchi. Okay, so this is a game. I had the black pieces here. Do you see the similarity in the opening?
Yeah.
You see the bishop on this diagonal. You see I have played e5. And my opponent in this game was a grandmaster by the name of Sergei Kudrin. He was a Russian grandmaster. And, oh shit, now my computer has... Okay, it unfroze. And this was played in 2009 in Philadelphia. As if anybody gives a shit about where it was played. But I have to say it, it's good form.
Right.
As if this game was played in Chicago, it would be any different. Okay, so the great thing about chess is that once you play a game, you can generalize ideas to other games. So when you think about what you did in your game, can you find a good plan here for white?
Okay, so with the similarities, the d6 pawn is still pretty weak since it can't be reinforced by a pawn. It only has the bishop on it right now. So
what else
we
is
have
weak?
one attacker with beautiful.
I had to bring the level of conversation down at some point. Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's all good, man.
I didn't think you heard me, man. That's a good mic. I just like whispered that. Damn.
I hear everything. I'm damn near omniscient.
Cover blown. Okay, so you did this thing in your game, and he did this thing in this game. It's literally exactly the same plan. Before we attacked the pawn on d6, what did you do?
In my game or in what we just went over?
In your game. Well, I know you ate breakfast this morning, but what did you do in your game before you attacked it? Before you could have attacked the pawn on d6?
I prepped it. So
What piece did you put on what square? In other words, you put a knight on an outpost. Where was that outpost?
Yeah, I put the knight on d5.
Bingo. So how can you prepare that? How did you prepare that in your game? Sorry to be so pushy about this. I think it's just important to see how this generalization works.
No, all good. Well, in my game, I had the bishop guarding it. I had the pawn on it, which both things are here right now.
But before you put the knight on d5, you eliminated one of its
Oh,
defenders.
I took out the knight. Oh,
okay.
Yeah. So we take out the knight, so the knight can't take back.
So what do we do specifically?
We're going g5 with the bishop.
Okay, you can actually go ahead and play that. Just mostly to test whether it works. Yeah, bishop g5 is exactly what he played. I went knight b4. You see that I'm trying to reinforce my control over that square with the other knight. Kudrin takes on f6. Now you see why, it's a GM, but you see why he's doing what he's doing. I took his bishop, I took. Now here's the 5-head thing. He can take my pawn on d6, but he actually didn't. Because he was so enamored with the idea of putting a knight on d5, as he should have been, that he thought it was even better than taking this pawn on d6 and opening up diagonals for my bishops. So what move do you think he did play here?
He played c3 with his knight?
He did. And I want to ask you to find one more move that occurs in just a couple more moves. So bishop c4, attacking his queen. He drops his queen back. Queen c6, he forces my bishop back. And now he makes a real 5-head GM move. Now, what would be the problem with putting the knight on d5?
2 attackers, only one... yeah.
Only one
He
defender. So
takes
this is called
bishop.
one defender. Pawn on e4 and
Yeah.
rook d1 is one defender. I would say that's two defenders,
okay.
wouldn't you?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. So, is there a reason he can't play that? Am I
Yeah.
looking for the reason why he can't just immediately go to it?
there's a specific reason he can't go to d5. And this is one of the hard things about chess is you're tunnel visioning this square. You're thinking, you're assuming that there's something going on this square. But in reality, white has relinquished his control over another square that can now be exploited by black. Look at the
The
whole
only thing
board.
I see is that c2 pawn.
Yeah, but a pawn is a pawn.
That's it?
As Richard J. Nixon once said, a pawn is a pawn is a pawn. Bishop takes d5, rook takes d5, queen c2. But why would you just give up a pawn when you cannot give up the pawn, right? I feel like in your mind, you're thinking of pawns as disposable. I told you that. But disposable doesn't mean you want to just give them away for free.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So my opponent made a really, really nice move. He prepares the move knight d5 by preliminarily defending this pawn. And using, once again, a piece that's not currently doing anything in order to do that. What move am I
Yeah, he brings rook to a2, right?
Bingo. Bingo, and now he's ready for knight d5, and he crushed me. Because later on, through the errors that I'm drawing, the rook rejoined the d-file, and he actually ended up winning the game by attacking the d6 pawn and playing on the queen side. So all of these similarities led me to form my opinion about how white should play in these positions, you see? And I've had a lot of games where I got crushed a lot because of a weakness on the d5 square. That's one of the main drawbacks of the knight off, actually. Anyway, sorry, I feel like I talked forever, but you get the point.
No, all good, man.
Okay, so my idea now, because, just to sort of get you back in form, was to solve a couple of puzzles, but to actually solve a couple of more challenging puzzles than you're used to. And perhaps we can talk through a couple of new tactical thinking patterns while we're doing that. What do you say to that? But if you want to play more, that also is totally fine with me.
No, that sounds good to me. Real quick though,
Sure.
I see chat keep saying c1 for the rook, and I think the reason why you don't play c1 is because you can just attack with the bishop, and then you're kind of fucked. You have to go back and then
You're
bring
exactly
the rook up.
right. Now, he can't attack with the bishop immediately. Why?
Yeah, because you have the knight on it, but you can just easily stop that, right? Because you push up the h pawn.
Yeah, so first of all, you can push up the h-pawn, prepare bishop g5, excellent. Now, second of all, you don't want to be in a situation where one of your pieces is tied to a particular square. You want the knight to have mobility, and the knight doesn't have mobility. What if you wanted to bring the knight to e3 and then to d5? Well, you couldn't do that because if you ever play knight d2, well, there's a very annoying bishop g5 move. So that's exactly the reason why rook is better on a2 than on c1. Very nice.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, Bobby, this game was against Sergey Kudrin, Grandmaster.